After I published a couple of videos about the Scandinavian defense that became very popular, some of you started asking me about the way to deal with the Scandinavian defense or how to defend against it. And therefore, let's turn the table and take a look. There is a line that I call a silent killer, as it's gonna win you a lot of games against your unsuspecting opponents. I'm Grandmaster Igor Smirnov, and let's go ahead and get started. Initially, we just go into the main line of the Scandinavian defense, knight c3, queen goes to a5, but here comes the moment where you deviate from the main line. The main line is pawn to d4, which is certainly an okay move. It's a good move, in fact, but it gives black some additional counterplay. In the future, they can sooner or later play their knight to c6 and put some pressure onto this pawn. And we do not want that. That's why let's take this move back and instead play a safer move, knight to f3. They usually respond symmetrically, knight to f6, and here once again you refrain from pushing your pawn forward and you play a bit timid move, bishop to e2. It looks passive, but it sets a super clever trap. Here black would probably bring their bishop out, either to f5 or to g4, it doesn't really matter, your moves are going to be the same. And then, here comes the bomb, you play pawn to b4. It looks like a completely weird move and an uncalled sacrifice, especially in connection with the previous passive moves you played. Therefore, your opponents will probably take this pawn, and also there aren't many other options for them to do anyway, and if they take it, it's hard to believe that this move is almost losing in a real practical game. Because then you play rook to b1, threatening the queen, but also aiming that pawn on b7, and once the queen goes back, then you take it with the rook. And now the material balance is equal, but thanks to this little tactical operation you managed to bring your rook to b7, which is a great accomplishment. Usually it is really hard to bring your rooks into play. For comparison, just take a look at black's rooks, which are doing nothing at all, while your rook is standing here putting strong pressure, on all of the black's pieces here, and it's a really deadly piece. Another great thing about this line is that at this point, most of your opponents, statistically, will play one of the many losing moves. Let me show you. I've just opened up a database of games where in the right corner you can see the statistics with the number of games played in this column as well as the success rate here. So, instead of the main move pawn to d4, we go for knight to f3, the main response is knight to f6, and then once again, instead of playing the main moves, d4, bishop c4, we go for this timid move, bishop e2. They respond with either bishop g4 or bishop f5, let's go for the most played move, bishop g4, again it doesn't really matter, and instead of playing one of these moves, we go for this killer move, pawn to b4. As you can see, this is a very hidden line, very few players actually played it in comparison to other options. So b4 will certainly take your opponent out of their opening preparation and will come as a surprise. Now, they are likely to take this pawn, and now after rook b1, they have to move their queen away. Now you take this pawn on b7 and just take a look at the statistics. All these moves, all the top late moves are losing in one move. Knight c6, pawn to e6, knight to d7, queen to c6, pawn to e5. All of them are losing immediately, which is just completely amazing. Let me show you how specifically you can win here. The point is, any of the move that your opponent will typically play, knight to c6, knight to d7, pawn to e6, pawn to e5, or whatever, they all fail to the same tactical shot. Let's say knight c6, knight goes to b5, with a double attack to the queen and the pawn on c7. And when the queen goes away, somewhere, it doesn't really matter, you can then take this pawn on c7, which also fogs the king and the rook, therefore winning the rook. Let's take a few moves back and I'll show you how you can win if in case black here, instead of all of these moves, if they go queen to c6. Then you simply land another piece to b5, now bishop b5 pins the queen and therefore it wins the queen and wins the game. Let's take a move back, and even if your opponent is prudent enough and notices the threat of knight to b5 and counters it by playing pawn to c6, you're still getting a great position and it's close to winning actually. You're ahead in development and still your rook on b7 is an extremely dangerous beast. First of all, you just need to finish your development, so let's say you castle, they go knight d7, you push the pawn to d4, and let's say black goes pawn to e6. Black still needs a couple more moves to finalize their development, but you are ready to rush into the attack. You can go knight to e5, straight away. You're ready to sacrifice the little pawn here on e5 after all of the exchanges, because that helps you to open up the position and to get to the black's king. And black is pretty much forced to take the knight anyway, as if they don't, you can also put your bishop to f4 in the next move, preparing some indirect attack to the queen, and it's pretty dangerous for black anyway. Therefore, they would probably take this knight right here after an exchange on e5. Then you've got another swing, knight to b5. This time you're threatening knight to c7 fork, despite of the fact that this square is seemingly protected, as if black takes the knight, and what else can they do? Then bishop takes b5, and it's a pretty interesting harmony of your pieces where the rook cuts off the black's king on this horizontal line, and the queen cuts off from the d-file, so it's almost a checkmate, and black would have to give up their queen here for the bishop to lose material but avoid an immediate checkmate. But of course, thanks to an extra queen, that's easily winning for white. Here I've got a short quiz for you as well. If you remember, in this position we're moving the knight to e5 to put even stronger pressure onto black, and we just analyzed that accepting this pawn sacrifice is not helping black. But what if they decide, okay, if knight takes e5 is not an option, let me just play bishop e7 and quickly hide here my king after casting. How would you play here as white? Please think about it, and if you can find the winning move for white here, write it down in the comments below. And if you ever wanted to get your chess to the next level, that is the best time of the year to do so, as it is Black Friday today, which means massive discounts, especially for online websites such as the Remote Chess Academy. And therefore, right now, not only you can get any of our premium courses at 50% discount, but in addition to that, you can also take advantage of our offer, buy one course, get one course free. So just to illustrate with numbers, for example, if you are paying $50, you will be getting courses equal to $200 value that you would have to pay otherwise. So it's a gigantic discount. I'm not sure, I actually don't think we ever did it that way, so don't miss out. Click the link below the video and I'm sure you'll find something that will help you to improve your chess tremendously. Thank you very much for watching. Best of luck in your chess battles.